7-year-old Athena Strand was abducted and killed by a FedEx driver. A couple days ago on November 30, Wednesday afternoon, Athena came home from school and got into an argument with her stepmom. This is where we know at some point Athena stepped outside. While he was making a delivery, Tanner Horner, the 31-year-old FedEx driver, hit her with the truck. After hitting her, he grabbed her and tossed her in the truck in a panic. And unfortunately, out of fear of Athena telling her dad and him getting in trouble, he decided to strangle her to death. Even though she was not seriously injured. And he was actually delivering Athena's Christmas present, a set of Barbie dolls called the You Can Be Anything collection. After an hour without hearing from Athena, the stepmother looked for her and realized she was gone, then called the cops. Then police tracked down Tanner after they discovered he had delivered a package to the house shortly after Athena's disappearance. He has been charged with capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, and his bail is at $1.5 million. And now Athena will never be able to get her Christmas present, and her life has been taken by a selfish man.
My neighbor married his daughter and had a kid with her, so let's talk about it. This is something that happened in Dominican Republic. I have a lot of Dominican Republic stories, but this is also confirmed by him. So he had his kids very young. He said he was about 20 when he had his kids. He had 2 girls and 1 boy, to be specific. And their mother passed away when the oldest was 15 years old. And in Dominican Republic, the woman takes care of the man. So his daughters had to step up and take care of him and his son. Anyways, fast forward, the oldest daughter goes to college. The son starts working in like a farm with his dad. And no one would ever see the daughter, the youngest daughter. She wasn't even going to school. She was just like, her duty was to take care of the house, which is really fun now that you think of it. This is way back, maybe, I want to say 1960s, 1970s, because she is definitely way older than my mom. So the way that everyone found out was one day, one of the daughters came back home from college, or the oldest daughter came back home from college, and she saw something weird, like they were treating each other like very weird. And later that night, she saw that her younger sister, that was maybe, I want to say 19 or something, was sleeping with her dad in the same bed. So the next morning, the dad did confess to the older daughter that he was having a relationship with his younger daughter, that they were in love. And she did ask her sister to just make sure that she's fine and like he's not forcing her to do anything. And she said that she was completely fine, that it was mutual, that because of all of the time they spent together, she fell in love with him. So the daughter said she was okay with it, that they had fallen in love, blah, blah, blah. And when I tell you that maybe the whole town knew about it by later that afternoon, when my mom was telling me the story, she said she could remember like it was yesterday how everyone was like so shocked that was going on. So about 6 months after that, like over there and back then, it was very important for people, if you had a relationship with someone, you had to like marry that person. We all know. So I was like, that's interesting. So incest is a green flag and not being married is a red flag. Got it. So they did get married. It was like a small ceremony, my mom said. My mom was still young by the time, but she said that her older brother was at the wedding. I definitely know more than I want to know about this whole situation, but a year into their marriage, so she has her kid, and apparently after like the kid was like 5 years old, she moved away. I guess how things changed, she was more ashamed of it. So she like moved away. You're probably like, Jess, sweetheart, how do you know this whole story? And I remember that he was like a super nice guy with like all of the kids, like the neighborhood kids and all of that. And my grandmother always used to say, like, stay away from him. I don't want you too close. Don't ever go into his house. Until one day I overheard my mom's brother talk about the whole situation. So that's how I found out. I wish I never did. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Story time. I'm in a long distance relationship and I don't know if I should break up with this boy or not. So, a little background information. Him and I were best friends for almost a month before we started dating. And literally, as soon as we started dating, he started asking me for nudes. And I would be like, no, not tonight, I'm tired. And then he would keep asking me why. And then he would start to make me feel guilty about not wanting to send him nudes. Eventually, he would just say, it's fine, I'll just wait until we can do physical things together. And he still has, quote, his on Snapchat. And he still has all of their nudes and everything. And literally the day before we started dating, he told me that he liked this one girl. And he'll always hang up the phone to talk to her instead of me. And then when I bring it up, he tries to say that he's... So obviously I try and bring this up to him, and he tries to make me feel bad by saying that he thinks about unaliving himself. He also has a few other red flags, like for part 2. Story time. I'm in a long distance relationship with this boy and I don't know if I should break up with him or not. So like I said, he says he always thinks about unaliving himself, so obviously I feel bad for him and I just love him so much that I can't let him go, and he has a bunch of other red flags. Like, he'll tell people he's 13 and other people he's 14, and, he apparently didn't know his birthday. Well, fast forward, he's been texting me more, and when I told him I loved him, he left me on open, which he never does. He always says it back to me. We still haven't really been talking on the phone, but I did send him pictures. Not fully nude, but both times I sent those, he literally called me right after. But other than that, he will never call me.
I've been stalking my ex-husband while he has visitations with our daughter. I know it sounds bad, but she never talks about their visits. I asked, how do you like his new apartment? She didn't say anything. So naturally, this gave me a bad feeling in my gut. When the weekend rolled around, I packed her backpack and sent her away to her father waiting in the driveway. But instead of staying home as I usually did, I jumped in the car and followed them. My ex drove to his apartment as expected, but instead of the two of them getting out, just he got out with my daughter's backpack. He tossed the backpack inside, shut the door, and went back in the car. He kept driving away with my daughter. I followed behind him for about 45 minutes. I felt sick to my stomach. Where was he taking her? He finally pulled up to an unfamiliar apartment in a neighborhood I've never been in. They both got out. I watched from across the street as he led her up to the front door. He buzzed the door button and talked to someone inside. When the door was unlocked, he guided my daughter inside, turned around, and got back in his car. I was so shook I could have puked. Was this where he'd been taking her every weekend? I let him drive away. I just stayed and watched the front door that my daughter had got into, trying to wrap my head around what I should do. Finally, I made myself get out of the car and go up to the building. I buzzed the button and waited. A male voice came through the microphone. He said, "You forget something?" He seemed to think it was my ex-husband again. I almost demanded for my daughter outright, but then stopped. If I did that, then he might not bring her out, so instead I did my best to deepen my voice and imitate my ex. "Yeah," I said, not wanting to say too much to give myself away. The man replied, "'Kay, one sec." After a minute, the man opened the door and looked shocked to see me. He said, "Who the f*** are you?" I pushed the door all the way open and said, "Give me my daughter." The man looked shocked and stepped back a little. I repeated myself again, but louder. He finally said, "Cool it, come with me." I followed him into the apartment with tears in my eyes. I wish I had tried harder to ask my daughter about her visits with her dad. Maybe then this wouldn't have happened. The man led me into the building's apartment. There, standing in the kitchen, was my daughter. I picked her up. She seemed to be okay. Then a woman walked in that I recognized to be my ex-mother-in-law. She apologized for worrying me and explained that my ex has been dropping my daughter off with her every weekend. I was relieved, but still angry. Why had he been hiding it? Also, the man at the door turned out to be my mother-in-law's boyfriend. I took my daughter home, and since then her father has lost custody of her. Not because he dropped her off at his mom's house, but because he's been stealing the contents of her backpack to sell for meth.